Tonight we'll be looking at a very important subject called homeschooling. And homeschooling, many people have all kinds of ideas about it. Is it an affront to regular traditional education and so on and so forth? No, nothing like that at all. Well, tonight I have two very, I don't know what to call them, super moms here who are going to share their own experiences, lived experiences of homeschooling. And it probably will remove certain misconceptions that you've had about homeschool and open up maybe other possibilities for many of you who might be considering alternative education routes. The first guest tonight I'm going to be introducing would be Lorraine Doy. Lorraine is a devoted wife and mother, among many other things that she does professionally, who possesses a strong desire to empower every family and young individual to unlock their boundless potential. Lorraine has five children, all adults now, who were homeschooled. So she's got wealth of information and experience that she's going to be sharing with us tonight. Sandia is a mom of twin boys and emphatically committed to her family. She has mastered the art of a balanced life whilst homeschooling her sons, working in the corporate world, and making time to pursue her studies. She is determined to educate other parents to keep an open mind when it comes to their children's education. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you both on the program. Thank you, in spite of your busy schedules, deciding to join us on this exciting night, our first episode in this new year, what I call Series 2 or Season 2. I'm sure what most people will be waiting to hear is what is it about homeschooling? What has made you take the journeys that you took? So I'm going to throw a couple of questions, maybe some specifically to one of you, but in the beginning, I'm just going to start with both of you. Lorraine, I'm going to start with you, but Sandia, to be the same question, maybe to briefly introduce yourself and maybe your family and what made you get into homeschooling and what was the initial motivation for you.
Thanks. Yeah, we have five children aged between 32 and 22. And when we just had three, very, very good friends of ours, a number of them took their kids out of school and started to home educate, which I thought was very strange and laughed at them a bit, to be honest. But as we saw their kids develop and grow much more mature and love learning, it started to make us think a bit. And then we moved house, and I was talking to my next door neighbour about the local schools. And having a baby, I was quite interested in what was going to happen. And then she was just talking about her kids' school philosophy and stuff, and I just thought, I don't know if my worldview as a Christian really resonates with that. And I don't know, it just made me decide, let's give this a go, home education, and see how we get on. Take it a year at a time. And it worked very well for us as a family. Two more children came along and added to the mix. And yeah, it for us it worked so well, and I think for each of our children it just worked very well too.
Wow, that's a very interesting. So you've been on the journey for a long time. Of course, you're all adults now, right? Okay. Well, we're gonna hear more from you, Sandia. Let's hear your amazing story too.
Thank you, Rex. So my story is a little different. We were formerly from where we lived in the United Kingdom, and my kids started mainstream school at an independent school at the age of 3. And when we relocated to South Africa, they were 6. So it was the natural move to go back into mainstream, back into an independent system, which we very happily did for the first 2 years. Um, and that's when our challenges began, where I found the children struggle to settle into the system. With the twin boys, it's like chalk and cheese. They are very different and their needs were equally different. The challenges we faced at that stage was the managing the homework, the logistics of transportation, traffic, um, and just juggling work life with the school set up. I found myself coming home and sitting with the boys till 9, 10 at night doing homework. That created so much of frustration, but also it created a lot of exhaustion for the kids. They were still little. They were at that stage 7. We were already into 18 months of the schooling in South Africa, and that at that stage we started exploring other options. I found myself sitting with them and getting really engrossed with the curriculum, understanding the curriculum a lot more. I basically became the teacher at home. They weren't comfortable enough to ask the teachers the questions in the classroom, of course, for various reasons, time, and they didn't want to be the one kid with tons of questions. So I became the teacher that they would come to in the home space, but that crept into family life. And
Hmm.
at that stage, we decided to explore homeschooling. I was well versed with the homeschooling idea from peers and friends from the United Kingdom and the US. So I started exploring, and I'll tell you more about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction there. So, you've had a journey from the UK down to South Africa, and so there's quite a mix there. Wow. Sandy, you've already touched on a little bit of what I wanted to ask about, which had to do with um, challenges. Did you want to add anything there in terms of like what have has been, if there's any at all, what has been the biggest challenge you faced with homeschooling, and also what has been the most rewarding part of the journey so far? Lorraine, I'll be giving you the same question as well.
So, at the early stages, it was definitely finding your feet in homeschooling. It was a new environment, it was a new learning environment for the children and for myself. And as you rightfully mentioned, I am a full time employee. So, the challenges, the real life challenges of the work, balancing work and balancing the homeschooling. So, I had to ensure that we had a proper structure in place. I had to ensure that we had resources in place to support the children in the homeschooling environment. But at the same time, I also had to reach out and connect with the like minded mums, like minded groups and people. So they were challenges, but they were positive challenges. They were challenges that were taking me out of my comfort zone. But also, they were challenges that was drove me closer to my children's learning needs, and closer to where they were actually at with their education. So, and that very nicely feeds into the rewards.
Hmm.
Slowly, my bond with my boys became a lot more stronger. We became a lot more closer. I was able to engage them on a very granular level about their education. I was able to talk their language at the young age about maths, history, science, geography, languages, something that historically I wasn't able to. So there was a greater connection established with the kids, which was just priceless.
Hmm.
Um, the other reward that was really priceless was seeing their desire to learn. And that was because mommy and daddy were so involved and engaged in their process. It naturally created an environment for them to develop. And it also bred discipline in the home, so which came very naturally for them. They wanted this to work because they saw that we all were in this together. I got the buy-in, which was just a reward in itself. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Very exciting. Thank you, Sandhya. Lorraine, I presume it's not going to be exactly the same.
It's similar. It's similar. I think early on, a big challenge was confidence and believing that I could do it. And um, I remember going to an educational bookshop with my sister, who's a teacher, and feeling totally overwhelmed by the selection of books and the lesson plans they had. And it just seemed very, very technical. And then I got talking to a few people, and some of them are very dismissive because they've been doing it for a while. It becomes second nature to them. And so I think they'd forgotten what it felt like as just as you're planning to start out. But then I met one lady who sat down with me, gave me a lot of her time, told me where to go to look for resources and where to go to do my research. In those days, there wasn't really the internet like we have now, so it was books. And she told me one book that outlined all the different approaches to education that you could use at home. And then from that, the approach to different suppliers that you could give you a curriculum or where to go if you just wanted to do it yourself. And that, I think, got me on my feet and helped me get going. Sent me in the right direction. Friends of a friend knew somebody who had a curriculum in the States. So we decided that basically, because of my lack of confidence, we would buy a curriculum the first year, and it had everything we needed to cover. It even had lesson plans on what day to do what. And that really helped me get established and feel confident. And we did that for a while, and I realized that actually I could put this together myself and I didn't need to spend all this money on the curriculum, though it was very much money well spent to start with. And when the boxes of books arrived just before the beginning of the school year with a whole year's curriculum in it, the delight of the kids when opening this book, looking through all the books, they were so excited to see what they're going to be learning. You just couldn't beat that, really. And it wasn't just, oh yeah, another day at school. They were excited about what they were learning. The other thing that was a real challenge was the disapproval of other people. Both sets of grandparents weren't very happy. A number of friends weren't very happy, particularly those in the education system, state education system. And, you know, looking back, I think I shouldn't ever have worried about that. I shouldn't have let that affect me. But I did. So it definitely was a challenge. And actually, now both sets of grandparents have come totally round. And another priceless moment was when my in-laws were telling us about a family. They were visiting various people in Kenya, and they visited a family, and my mother-in-law told me as soon as she spent 5 minutes with the family, she just knew the children were home educated because of the way that they related to strangers coming into their home, how they related to each other and their parents. And so it was no surprise when she found out that, yes, these children were home educated and interested in their world and stuff. So she was turned out to be incredibly positive. So, yeah, I shouldn't have let it worry me at the beginning, because in the end, people were won over.
Wow. So obviously the fruits spoke for themselves then. And I'm sure in Sandia's case, the fruits are still speaking for themselves.
Yes.
Just to
Awesome.
add on to what Lorraine mentioned about the challenges, I could relate to that because we started homeschooling pre-COVID. So there was, I started my process 6 months before COVID could actually kick in. And I remember there was quite a lot of doubters, like, what are you doing? And from my inner circles, social circles, um, you could see people had their doubts. You could see people were concerned about what am I doing to these two young minds? Um, is it going to be the healthy choice for them? What's going to happen? Is she making the right decision? So I remember that being one of the challenges, is the noise that was around us about the decisions we were making for these two young people.
Yeah, and I was talking to my son about this today, and he said that he thinks I had the privilege of being able to stay at home and be the main educator, um, and not have to worry about balancing a career as well. But he said because of the cost of living now and the way things are, it's so much harder for people. So that when people are home educating now, they've got a whole lot more to deal with than say I did. But I think he still thinks it was very worthwhile what
Mm.
I did, and it's still is a very worthwhile thing to do. And he's still very positive. He would consider it himself for his own
Oh,
children when he
wow.
has them.
Mm.
So yeah, he's not been making any commitment just yet, but he is married, and there's obviously a discussion between the two of them when
Mm.
children come along. But he's not anti, so
I
he's
like that.
encouraged
I like that. So he obviously enjoyed it so much that he's contemplating doing something in that area. That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much to both of you for that aspect there. I want to come to something about educational approaches now. Obviously, Lorraine, you mentioned in your time there was no internet and things, it was all books. And well, I guess it was still a good reading culture for people. So my questions, again, to both of you, you can go in any order you want. As what educational approaches have helped you? I know books were mentioned. Was it very traditional? Where it's very unorthodox or whatever? How did you do it? Would you use any specific curriculum or resources that have worked for your family, Lorraine, in your case, as you look back, for Sandhya, as you're in the process?
it. Well, there were just so many approaches. I was writing them down last night, and I have to list them. So there's the traditional, rather like school, teacher at the front explaining, kids do worksheets sort of thing. There's the classical approach, which the information that the kids have or use tallies with their age development. So they call it logic, the logic stage to start with. You basically, they love information, finding out details about dinosaurs, planets, grammar, anything. That's the way they tick, young children. So that's what you focus on. Then you move on to the grammar stuff. You know, actually, might be, I can't remember the title. I think it's logic then grammar, and that's when they begin to reason. They learn to reason about things, and so you go with that and asking them questions why and what would happen next, that kind of thing, in any area of the curriculum. And then lastly, as they're older teenagers, it's the rhetoric stage. So it's a bit like teaching them
Mm,
to debate, to listen to somebody else's point of view, to reason back, um, and to present an argument well. There's also the Charlotte Mason approach, which is very into getting out there into nature, spending at least half the day outside exploring, doing stuff in parks, zoos, whatever, as well as more of a classical sort of approach to the sitting down kind of work.
mm,
Um, there's Montessori that's very much channeling everything to fit around the child. Um, Unit studies, which is when you just do a topic like a project, and then every area of the curriculum comes is fits in with that theme, whether it's maths or English, history, geography, everything. Workbooks, so it's like you get some information in a book, and then as questions and answers, and you kids just answer. It's very independent, which if you're working would be quite a good thing. Um, Unschooling, where the child follows their interests a lot more, and the adult just helps them to find their way through that. That gets a lot of criticism about the kids might not want to learn anything, but from what I can see, most children are very interested in the
mm,
world around them and learning more. There's now loads of things online. That online classes is a bit like school but online. And then there's eclectic, so you just pick and choose from any of those and whatever. We did classical because I found that the most interesting, and I thought if I'm bored with what the children are doing, there's no way I'm going to be able to motivate them to learn,
mm.
and it worked very well for our kids, probably because they're like their parents. So, I
Mhm.
think it's really, really important for people to research all the different types and work out what would work for them and their each individual child. Um, so that's my
Awesome.
theory on
Wow.
it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that education on all the different things. I like the eclectic things as well at the end where you can pick and choose what will work well for you, which I believe will not work very well in a mainstream where everything is structured and formalized and need approvals for X, Y, and Z. So it's good to hear that. Thank you so much, Lorraine. Sandia.
So, because of the children's age, and when we started off at the age of 8, it was very obvious that the learning needs were very different. One was very much an explorer, and one was very much a traditional learner. So, exactly what Lorraine has explained, we brought in the traditional and the classical and a bit of the exploring into our home, into our learning environment, and it worked very well. The children, you could see they were very agile, they were very flexible, and they enjoyed the exploring, which was very appropriate for their age. I think you had to be creative in your learning in stance with the children. So we spent a lot of time. I would say we, my team, which I'll come to because I used a whole
Mhm.
range of resources in assisting me in my homeschooling journey. They were very innovative and creative. They would have their lessons out in the garden. The science lessons was around sitting under the tree or allowing the kids to climb a tree during a lesson. So we're very flexible. We were very walking around, walking around with one would bring her dog to encourage sensory at that age.
Mhm.
So it was interactive. It was extremely interactive. It was extremely adventurous, explorative. So we evolved and we've moved on. So we started very exploratory, and then we moved a little more into traditional. And from so it's been 4 years, and then our third year we were a little less orthodox. We went actually very unorthodox. So I tested different systems along the way. And this year we have now chosen a more traditional online schooling approach. So, as the children's needs changed over the years, I equally adapt to different systems to accommodate their needs and their developments as we went along. So, yeah.
Mhm. Wow. Wealth of information and very exciting too because you sort of taking the icing of the next bit I was going to ask, which had to do with socialization, which is something you hear a lot about. Oh no, but yeah, they may be very good with straight A grades and all that, but what about their social life? Would they be social misfits in society? So my question to both of you is: how do you address the socialization aspect? And then, have there been any challenges, Lorraine? Were there any challenges in terms of the social interactions of your children?
Um, no, I think it's actually been good because the kids that were naturally very shy um, didn't have quite the same pressure on them to fit into a mold that I think a lot of kids do in school. You've got to be a certain way to be popular. They could be themselves and mature at their own pace, and through interaction with older people, get more confident. My general idea is that you become better at doing something by learning from experts, not from learning from other people that are just as inexperienced as you. So, to get good social skills and to be comfortable in social settings, you really need to spend a lot of time around people who are already comfortable doing those things and can set you an example. Um, they all had lots of friends. Some really good friends. My oldest daughter met a girl at a homeschool conference years and years ago. They're still best friends. They were each other's bridesmaids. And although they don't live particularly close together, they have a very, very strong bond, and they are still really supportive of each other. They're both mums now and there for each other. Um, it's just a very, very special relationship. Um, they've all made friends pretty easily, really, people that they click with. And um, the funny thing was, we did organise a homeschool, like a regional get together. And I stood and watched, and basically all the children were playing together, talking to each other, making new friends. And it was the adults that were who had all been to school, who were standing around the edge of the room looking awkward. Who do I talk to? How do I cross this bridge? You know, and so it just proved to me it's such a fallacy. Children naturally are sociable, and human beings are sociable creatures. And it's almost like the older we get, or the more negative experiences we have, the more self-conscious, the more socially awkward we
Mm,
become. And once I talked to the mums and they started, and some of the dads, to talk to each other, everybody got on fine, but the
mm.
children were actually much quicker at making friends than the adults. So it's a bit
Adults.
ironic.
Wow. Well, you've just busted a myth there. But Sandhya, I need you to add to this.
So, socialization has never been an issue for my boys, despite one being more of an introvert and the other being an extreme extrovert. They've been busybodies um, since a few weeks. You know, they were when they grew up in the United Kingdom. They went to every play group you could possibly imagine. They were also part of a traditional schooling system. So. Um, when we started homeschooling, they were already involved in extramurals. So they already had a very, very active life outside the schooling system. So the socialization was never a challenge or a problem for them or for us because they made friends very easily wherever they went. One child's a natural chatterbox. He'll just go up to anybody and talk to them. We had many um, we have many social settings that we expose them to. They are involved in many extramurals, so it's never been a problem or such for us. Um, Actually, the problem for us is keeping up with the homeschooling group social calendar.
Yeah,
It's so
totally,
busy.
totally.
And I just believe, from a social perspective, we're living in a very fortunate generation where there's just so much out there that you can be so selective and fussy and choosy about who you want to join, what groups do you want to be part of, what interests do you want to pursue, even at their young age. So we actually spoil for choice when it comes to socializing, and also we have more time on our hands to socialize compared to kids that are in a mainstream school who are governed by 8 to 5 or 8 to 4 curriculums and school timetables. Yeah.
Hmm. Wow. So it's actually didn't turn out to be a challenge. It's actually very much rewarding from what I can hear from the stories of both of you. Wow, this is good. Thank you
Actually,
so
the
much.
children
Yes.
find more time to play, and that was
Mm,
also one of my motivations for homeschooling at their young age. I really
mm,
wanted them to be out there playing at a young age and not sitting in front of a desk from 8 to 2 and coming home exhausted. I really wanted them to spend their childhood, at least from under 10, playing, interacting, getting their hands dirty, and that's exactly the experience they've had thus far.
mm. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. For any parents listening, this is wealth of information. I hope you're benefiting from it. Please share the link with some other parents you know, including parents who may be struggling with school issues for their young ones who might benefit from certain options that homeschooling might present. Thank you. Let's come to another area. Lorraine, I'm going to throw a direct question to you, Sandy. You can make an input into the question here. Transitioning to adulthood. How was the transition from homeschooling? How did it go for your children? And do you think homeschooling played a role in their post education paths as well?
Oh, most definitely. I think our philosophy of parenting was very much to be strict with them when they were very small, and then to gradually give them more and more autonomy and freedom. So by the time that they came to going to sixth form, they were all home educated up until 16, and then my oldest stayed at home until university. That was her choice, and the others all went to sixth forms or colleges. They all um, adapted, adjusted very, very easily. I think because they had more and more freedom, we discussed things quite openly with the children. We might, or young people as they were then, um, because we talked things through with them, there wasn't quite that rebellion or going wild or anything like that. They were prepared, and they made friends from very, very different backgrounds to us. And um,
Mhm.
you know, they might be their friend, but not necessarily make the same choices that their friends were making. So that was good. Their tutors commented virtually, I think, every parents' evening we went to, they might change subjects or something, and new tutor who didn't know they'd been home educated, one of the things they would say about them was that they thought outside the box. They didn't just churn out the same stuff that other kids did at the sixth form, and also that they were very independent in their learning. They didn't need to be spoon fed, they didn't need to be chased up. They had an
Mm.
assignment, they got on with it, they did it, handed it in on time, and well. So I think they were ready for that. They few of them had Saturday jobs and had responsibility, that kind of thing. They did well with those, and then going getting jobs in the real world. They've done well. They're all working. My oldest did a degree in Russian. She was asked to learn Russian, which was a bit of a shock. And we had a bit of a debate about it, but I'm so glad that we did employ a tutor for her, because that's her gifting. Somehow she knew. She spent a year in Ukraine, um, practicing and getting very fluent in Russian. Um, and yeah, she's worked in the city since coming back. And my next one down's actually got a PhD in physics, so the science side of education wasn't held back at all for him. Um, and he's working in IT and enjoying his job. And the next one's a cameraman. So I'm very into film and worked in a film hire place. So for him, he was getting into it, and when he was still at school, if you like, he was at home, and he could just take a day off of schoolwork to go off on a shoot and support the team that were doing it. He's sort of like a volunteering with them. He got a wealth of experience through doing that. He was with other, men who treated him as a man. So as a young, a teenage boy, that was invaluable for his development and social skills, I guess. So, and that really helped him with that. And the next one down, she's decided to go off and work in a shop for a bit, and then she decided she did a degree in theology, and she's working as a chaplain in a school in Australia. And then the youngest left school or left homeschooling at 16 and to train as a chef, and worked in a West End hotel for a while, and now decided to change to support victims of domestic violence. And she's retraining, studying for that. So they've all done very different things, been exposed to the same sort of situation. We've had people in our world who've been victims of domestic violence. And so, I can understand why my youngest has had that experience and interest in helping people. Um, all sorts of different people have come into our home. So, and we've let them follow their interests, but they still had to do the basics, and there's been no negotiation on those. So, yeah, sorry, having five kids, you end up talking for ages about each one. But
Well,
they
wonderful.
all,
Thank you. Yeah,
yeah, they're all
sorry, go
very
ahead.
different and done their own thing and done it well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for giving us an insight into what each of the children have done. And obviously, you can see they were all, it wasn't a straight jacket kind of career path for them. So thank you for sharing that. Sunday, did you want to add anything to that? I know the your princes are still on the journey to greatness.
Well, I take away a lot of gems from Lorraine's
Okay.
input. There's a
Okay.
lot that I can learn because we've got a long way to go. But it's
Mm,
interesting to hear her talk about the different interests. And I think that's what homeschooling does, right? It creates
mm,
that opportunity to explore different avenues. You're not stuck in a box. So it creates time and opportunity for children to just explore different interests. And that's what
mm.
I'm taking away from Lorraine, that her experience has allowed the children to just have open minds about the fields and avenues they want to venture out into.
All right. Thank you so much for that addition on there. Well, I guess you're not the only parent or guardian or carer listening to this. So others take the cue from Sandia and also do the same. Learn some stuff from watching this video and sharing it with other people too. Sandy, I want to come to you with on the aspect of because you have twins. I felt this would be a great question to ask you. How have you tailored your homeschooling approach to each child's unique needs? Were there any special challenges, not just in homeschooling a child, but in homeschooling twins?
So that's an interesting question, Rex, because my boys are very different. Like most twin moms will tell you that doesn't mean they're twins, that they're identical in every way. No, from their dental structure being so different to the way they think. It's like chalk and cheese. So, one of the initial challenges that I faced in the early years when the boys were around 6 or 7, they were at a school when we first got to South Africa, and I identified that one really struggled with reading because he had a tight tongue. So, his pronunciation was a challenge for him, and where the other was the introvert but yet a very fluent reader. So I used my skills that my transferable skills from the corporate, and saw the need for bringing in SME, special subject matter experts, into my home. For example, I reached out to a reading specialist who worked with the one twin for 2 years until he reached a stage where he was much more confident in his reading. And he's now so passionate about reading. He's the one that would pick up the book on his own and
Mm,
sit and read in his corner for hours. So that was one, and that's one challenge and how we addressed it. The other challenge was maths. So I found that one child, and that was identified very early on, that one was really advanced in his mathematics skills and the other wasn't. So often we had the challenge from the schooling system where feedback would constantly state that, your child needs more work in this area and the other didn't. So it was finding that balance without creating any, um, not creating an environment where the other child felt less than.
Mm.
So what I did was, going back to my SMEs, subject matter experts, I brought in tutors. So I brought in young tutors, very unorthodox, not your typical maths teachers, but young people that could relate to them. So I brought in an advanced maths tutor, somebody that could work with the child that's much more advanced, and the other maths teacher who was much more patient, calmer, that could engage and relate to the other twin. And I'm very pleased to say it's 4 years, it's going on our fifth year, and those tutors are still with us, and it's going really well.
mm.
So that has really helped us in a practical way to assist the kids and meet them at their needs where they are at, which was definitely at different levels for different subjects.
Wow. Interesting dynamics there. Wow. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for the contribution on that point. Let's take a quick break and then we will come back. And then, Sandy, I'm going to come back to you on curriculum choices. As we live in a very a different world today, what are some of the things that you can look about? We'll talk about that after the break. So we'll take a quick break just for about 40 seconds and then we'll be back. Prime Focus is a twice monthly live streaming program on YouTube which highlights issues of concern to individuals, families, and relevant communities, bringing greater awareness and education, with a view to improving the lot of many through anticipated positive actions. Join in our conversations and subscribe to the channel too. Let's come to curriculum choices here. My question is I know you touched on a few things already. The use of, I like the term SMEs. When you said it, my mind went somewhere else. I thought you were talking about small and medium enterprises. So thank you for subject matter experts. Thank you so much for that. What learning resources have helped you apart from using these expert teachers for your twin boys? I believe they are going on to 11 years now. Am I right?
They turned 12 in April this year.
Oh, they actually do. They're already 11. Okay, right. So they turn 12.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
wow. Okay, thank you. Yes, you've talked about how you handle the difference of any learning resources that you think have
Plenty.
been plenty
I
of
think in
them.
this day and age, we're actually so spoiled for choice.
Hmm.
When I first started off in 2020, and I do understand a lot of your viewers are from the UK, so what I'm about to say they might find useful. So I reached out to my colleagues and social networks out in the UK because I was aware that they were homeschooling their children, and there was so much more resources out coming streaming out of the UK compared to South Africa at that time. Um, and we started with Oak Academy. Lorraine, you might have heard or familiar with Oak Academy,
Hmm.
and we used them as a starting. There was so much free resources when it came to languages. The boys were familiar with French, for example. There was so much of online tools on Oak Academy. And then slowly I moved on to the South African curriculum because it made more sense because we are in South Africa. We engage with the local curriculum. So we started with the national curriculum in South Africa, but I also ensured that the boys maintain their touch to the UK. So we had options of using the Cambridge curriculum. So, from a curriculum perspective, we still with the South African national curriculum, but from a resource or infrastructure perspective, we're using an online tool right now, and it's quite exciting that this online platform is also used at university. When we registered, I was fascinated to see the same tools that I actually use for myself at tertiary is what the boys are using. So they use Blackboard, they use Teams for their lessons, they use Kahoots. Kahoot is like an online game during the lesson. It's very interactive, and I just find it really, really interesting, fascinating, and impressive because you're preparing them for the working world at such a young age.
Mm,
They're logging on daily onto their team's calls, submitting their work via Blackboard. Everything's digital, everything's online. They're using PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, Excel, and I'm like, whoa! Uh, at your age, me at your age, I did not know half the tools that you're using right
mhm,
now. So, from a curriculum perspective, I also where quite a few parents use a little bit of everything. In some of our homeschooling groups, mums use a little bit of UK English, Singaporean maths curriculum.
mm,
So you're not restricted to your home curriculum as such, right? So you've got the luxury of spoil for choice. I know that the Singaporean maths curriculum is favorable amongst a lot of homeschooling parents, and they like the British English curriculum. So, quite varied and diversified. And what I also found is when it comes to languages, um, parents are not restricted to the South African languages. If they're doing the Cambridge curriculum, they're allowing their kids to learn French and Spanish, which is amazing because you're just allowing your kid, you're exposing your children to so much more, not restricting them to a set curriculum as such.
that's right. Yes, thank you so much for that. This is so insightful because sometimes we get this impression about what homeschooling is, a parent maybe giving up maybe career to sit at home and try and teach every different subject without realizing that actually these people are not just getting the one-to-one attention, which is a luxury in the main school, except maybe special needs, also the benefit of a cocktail in terms of what you want to put together for yourself and keep the flack out of things. So that's exciting indeed. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, let me throw this question to both of you about extracurricular activities. I know you did mention a couple of them already. In particular, maybe what are your children involved in, Sandia, if you don't mind, maybe sharing a little bit of maybe the extracurricular activity they do, and then maybe for both of you as well. Was there any physical education? I know you mentioned social activities in terms of homeschooling conference. Were there any other things that they did, Lorraine or Sandia are doing?
Lorraine, should I go for this?
Yeah, yours are current. I've got things to say, but yours is more up to date. So
So the boys are currently 11 years old, and I was of the view that by the age of 10, I want them to experience as much as possible. So I allowed them many opportunities, enroll them into many clubs. And I said, by the time they reach the age of 10 or 11, they must be able to shortlist three extramurals that they're really keen about and they're passionate about. Unfortunately, in our case, my children still want to do everything, which is not possible. So we have to make hard choices there. But I was adamant that the boys pick up a musical instrument. So, to date, they play piano. They started with the violin, moved to the guitar, and stuck to the piano to date. I was also keen on them playing team sports for obvious reasons. So they did play softball or baseball for 2 years, and we stopped that due to logistical reasons and that was the main reason. The dynamics of our family life and responsibilities shifted a bit, so we had to readjust schedules. The boys do karate, so martial arts, and they're quite passionate. And I just want to spend a few seconds just touching on that and the benefits of homeschooling. So they're quite passionate about karate. And what homeschools has allowed us to do is it's given us an opportunity to spend more time in the areas of their interest. So because we didn't have to spend the afternoons on homework or projects and assignments, they could spend more time on these sort of extramurals that they were passionate about. And I was very adamant about giving them a balanced life, not just bogged down with academics. You find that in Asian culture or Indian culture, academics is really, really important. And being very unorthodox myself, I was adamant that I want to give the boys a balanced life and as much exposure and experience as possible. So coming back to karate, because they were able to spend a lot of time practicing in the house outside their lessons, they participated in the national championships last year, and one twin took first place. So he was placed first for the national tournament, and the second twin took second place. But that's just a testimony of how you can dedicate more time to areas of your interest. The boys love drama. They're still at drama school. Um, they tried out water scouts yesterday, so they tried canoeing and swimming in a dam for the first time, which was quite scary for me. But also, all these experiences are possible, and it's quite exciting, and it just makes them a lot more adventurous. Um, yeah.
Wow, this is so good. Wow, wow, wow. I'm just dumbfounded. All these different things. Wow. Lorraine, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, we were again privileged because a lot of people in the area we live in London um, were home educating, and so we sort of got to know each other, and the network got larger. So we organised swimming lessons. Like you get a class going to a swimming lesson for a swimming lesson. We did that. We did tennis lessons, gymnastics. What else did we do? We had sports day, we had Christmas concerts, all that kind of thing, and the kids would practice. There was even a band which my kids weren't doing, but it was available. There were some art groups as well, which we didn't go to. It was because basically there's just too much,
Hmm,
too many options. We had to be strict with ourselves. Otherwise, we spent our whole lives tearing around doing all these and not actually learning sort of anything academically. Um,
hmm,
so, particularly with 5 kids, it did get a bit difficult.
hmm,
Out of school, they went to cricket clubs, ballet lessons. Trying to think what else they did. I know that they did archery was one thing. There's an interest for a while. Karate as well, actually. They went to a group that my husband could do as well. So it was a sort of a family thing. They did that and took exams. And yeah, they've done all
Wow,
these
looks like
different things. Like it's so every day. I've actually forgotten as you were mentioning things. I thought, oh yeah, karate. I forgot they did that. So, and I think if my son hadn't gone up to Glasgow for uni, he probably would have stuck with the cricket for a lot longer. But I'm glad he did. Um,
awesome. Wow, so much to choose from now. I'm almost jealous. If I was a kid, I'll just push my parents, please do homeschooling for me. Wow. Thank you so much for that. Coming to you, Sandhya, on the technology side, I know you've touched on a few things that you said have been helpful. Did you want to add anything in that particular area, how you've leveraged it, not just from a resource viewpoint, but also maybe in terms of them for their own extra development or personal development? How have you used it at home? Because one of the things I had someone come on one of the programs before. We talked about the fact that schools can teach you things, but then the parents themselves need to know how to use a lot of those tools as well. So have you been challenged by the things they've been doing themselves, or were you already did you have all in place already to be able to meet up or to the levels that they needed in terms of technological usage?
I think, Rex, you have forgotten that you were my undergrad computer science teacher, right? So you cannot doubt my computer skills. There has
All
been
right.
moments where the children teach me a thing or two. Um, And again, going back to the resources that they use, especially the tools that we use in the corporate, it's quite impressive. It's quite impressive that the children can navigate PowerPoint presentations on their own. It's impressive that they can draft out a Word document at this age and upload it on Teams, right? When COVID kicked in, half of our peers, we were trying to, how do you even upload a document on Teams? And here you've got 11 years old kids that know how to navigate technology, which is really, really impressive.
mm,
So again, I just think that technology has so evolved that it's important that we move with the times. Because if not now, eventually they are going to go into the workplace and stumble across these platforms and tools and not know how to utilize them.
mm.
Um,
Very, 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 very true. Thank you for that reminder. You went back so many years down memory lane. Thank you for that.
Actually,
um,
as well, I think one of the things we used to joke about was that if the children don't come out educated, the parents will, because we learn so
uh-huh.
much through
100%.
teaching children. So, I had to do an Excel course so that I was familiar with it online and learn all these skills myself. And I think quite often the children instinctively learn and process things and get very creative. Um, with the digital world, and it's harder for us as adults, but it's actually quite a lot of fun learning. It's such a sense of accomplishment when you learn how to do a total, a list of numbers on an Excel sheet,
Mm,
that kind of thing, but which probably for the bulk of the population is just so straightforward. But you learn how to do it, and then you learn another skill and another skill. So
mm.
yeah, you don't
Wow.
have to be an expert to start
Mm,
with to pass these skills on.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead,
it's definitely
Sandhya.
a learning journey. Every
Mm,
day you learn new things. And from a
Yeah.
technology perspective as well, I've learned not to be fearful of the gaming side of technology and the social technology that the kids are engaging with in this day and age. The Oculus,
mm,
which is the device that you go into another world in, and I've learned to utilize that or maximize that in their learning, in the learning experience. For example, they play Minecraft, and
mm,
I made it an effort to learn about Minecraft and how educational it can be, how much of engineering that goes into it, how much of building that goes into it. So, not everything is dull and gloom, not everything is bad. It's just how you utilize these tools that the
mm,
kids are exposed to and how engaged you as a parent are with the technology that your children are using as well. Yeah.
mm. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you both for that. I want to come to the area of work-life balance. But before that, there's a question which has been burning in my thoughts for the last minute or two. Would you say homeschooling, you share a sense of mission as parents with the children in a closer way than if they were out there leaving a lot of responsibility to other teachers in a traditional environment?
I think my personal view is that it's always the parents' responsibility
Hmm,
to be setting the culture and
hmm,
training their children to think. Um, I suppose that you know you have to be very academically educated to design a gas chamber to kill
hmm,
other human beings.
hmm,
So any education without a moral compass can be very damaging. And so wherever our children are being educated, we need to be sure of of, of that and be involved with it. Obviously, if the school your child is at is very different to your worldview, there's much more friction involved in that, and it's going to take a lot of discussion, looking ahead and talking about things before they face them, if you
hmm,
can. So, whereas same with home education, I was out and about with my children. So we saw people being frisked in the street, and my daughter literally bumped into somebody who'd been shot in the leg in the park just before we got to the park. They're confronted with a world that has a lot of evil and suffering and people who get very desperate. But I was there to explain it and talk them through it. And so they weren't hearing about it. Well, in some ways, I'd like them to have heard about it secondhand, but yeah, it's something we need to prepare them for, but
mm,
also to talk them through it. And
mm.
it's really important for us as parents, no matter what educational choices we make, to be as involved as we can be and as nurturing and encouraging without scaring our kids as we possibly can be.
Okay. Thank
It's
you so
obviously
much,
easier
Lorraine, for
if they're
that.
in the home, but
Hmm. So engagement is very important as much as possible. Right.
yeah.
Sandy, what would you say to that? I mean, have you felt like you? I know you did say something at the beginning about the connection. Is it a closer connection? Has this journey sort of would it have been different if they were in a traditional setting? No doubt you would look at their homework and check that things are being done and all that. But would you say this has been a bit more personal?
100%. So,
Mm,
this homeschooling journey has really been a very personal process for me.
mm,
Uh, it did get a bit emotional in a positive way at times where I couldn't believe I actually did this. And for
mm,
me, it's been one of my greatest accomplishments in my life, homeschooling my children. I never thought, it was never in our radar to homeschool our kids.
mm,
It started off pretty well in the UK at an independent school. Um, and dropping them off, picking them up was quite easy. But when we started homeschooling, it brought the family unit so much closer.
Yeah.
It created so many opportunities to have meaningful discussions, meaningful engagements. It was no longer just at the dinner table. The boys and I started doing lunches together every day, and we never get tired of each
mm,
other. I
mm,
couldn't imagine my life,
mm,
any
mm,
different. We have breakfast together. We go for walks together. We do exercise together. We There's a lot more communication. We
mm,
spend a lot of devotion time together. So, in the
mm,
midst of this, we were able not just to build them academically or socially, but spiritually. We get
mm,
to read more, we get to pray more together. So, I just find that I was able during this time just build them and ground them with values that are important to us as a family, which I don't necessarily believe that I would have had the time to infiltrate or influence them the way I wanted to in these younger years, in this fundamental early stages of their lives. And I think homeschooling is allowed for that. Homeschooling is allowed for us as a family, for my husband and myself, to really embed our values inside them and preparing them for the big world. Um, so yeah, it really has bonded us. We're so much closer. We talk all the time, actually too much sometimes. But it's been great. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. As I said in my bio, I'm emphatically committed to this process of building my children the way um, I need to.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You couldn't have said it better there. Um, a few final thoughts before we close. Work-life balance. How do you balance homeschooling with other responsibilities, commitments? Lorraine, I know you've been down that trail before. Are there any tips for maintaining a healthy work-life balance? But this is an active thing, so Sandhya, this equally applies to you. And you don't mind me saying it, that you work in a very corporate environment, very loads of responsibilities. How do you manage everything?
So I'm not going to deny that it's not easy. It requires a lot of discipline
Mm,
and requires a person to have enormous amount of structure in their lives. I work full time, as you rightfully mentioned, and I'm studying, and we homeschool the boys. So I ensure that I've had a team of tutors around me and a good support structure, which Africa allows you for. Um, but my days start very early and my nights finish quite late, and that's the reality of my life. It
mhm,
comes with a lot of sacrifice and hard work and determination in order for this to work. But equally, the family unit is committed to the success of this homeschooling journey. So yeah, I believe that you can put as much into your day as you want to, or you can put as little into your day as you want to.
mm,
Homeschooling allows that flexibility, but I'm a firm believer of a work-life balance. And, I can't say that we are able to have a very balanced life because of the structures that we have in place.
mm. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandhya. Lorraine, do you want to add any toppings
Um,
there?
I think to always have what you're aiming towards at the front of your mind, so that every opportunity or distraction that comes along, you evaluate it in the light of where you're going. And so it's not just a knee jerk reaction, oh, that's fun, let's do that. You have to weigh up, can we fit this in? Is it sensible? Is the gain worth the cost?
Mm,
Um, and again, just being organised and self-disciplined, and maybe setting boundaries and sticking to them. So even now, we've learned the only way we can survive physically and emotionally is if we have, with other adult children, we have a maximum of 3 events a week outside of our working week, because otherwise we get exhausted, we end up not doing anything well. And sometimes we have to say no to things that would be wonderful, but it's just the same when the kids were little. Um, this is actually going to cost too much um, to their sleep, their energy levels, their focus. So we're just going to have to pass it by. And it's making hard decisions, isn't it?
mm.
But the right ones.
Thank you, Lorraine, for that. And Sandhya for sharing these thoughts. So it's doable to those in our audience watching this or those who watch it later. It certainly is doable. You can make it, set the right boundaries, as has been said, and it's very rewarding indeed. I come to the two final areas. Sandy, I want to throw this specifically to you. Future plans. As your children grow, do you have a plan to maybe to transition them into other educational models? And how are you approaching your educational planning for both of your sons?
So it's always been an area where we constantly engage the boys and we're constantly getting their buy-ins as to where they are. So it's a constant assessment with them. Just like the development of a baby into a toddler, the life cycle of a child, the needs differ as they develop or as they grow. And equally, that's been our approach with the homeschooling journey, that we constantly assess the needs of the boys as we go along. And I think it's really important to be agile and to be flexible and not be fixated that this is end all and this is it.
Mm,
We started in mainstream, we went into homeschooling. I honestly don't know what the future holds. The boys' needs and their wants constantly change as they grow and the more they are exposed. We will consider mainstream if we need to, or sixth form. To integrate them back into the school system if our lifestyle and if our family demands change accordingly. So nothing set in stone.
okay.
We're quite open and flexible as a family. And that's just been the way we are as a family, really open minded as to the
mm,
next steps. And we haven't, you work it out as you go along, right? And I can honestly tell you, nothing is set in stone and nothing is preplaced. You just got to be flexible and open minded about the journey.
mm. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Obviously, Lorraine, I heard you say your oldest decided to even stay on longer at home before going to university. So that's quite exciting to know that they were not running away from something. They actually loved it, and that's awesome to be able to see. But let me come to a final area. It's been a very wonderful time together. Thank you so much to both of you. Advice for parents. What advice would you give parents considering this? Um, and in addition to, well, Lorraine in particular, but to Sandy as well, is there anything you had wished you had known before you started this journey? Any key points you want to leave for our audience or parents or would be parents?
I wish I hadn't been so intimidated by it, the thought of it.
Mm,
And I just say research as much as you can, work out what's going to work best for you and your children, and even if things aren't maybe working so well, then mid-year change what you're using. We had to do that with one of ours. Books with loads of pictures as well as writing on them. When they were about 8 or 9, it was just too busy for him and he wasn't learning. And so we ended up actually researching and getting what I'd used when I was at school. We found them on a second-hand bookshop, and
mm,
he just ran with those because they were so simple, and it helped him focus on the work itself. So it wasn't his lack of ability, it was just the other resources were not right for him. Um, so yeah, be flexible, evaluate. Don't worry if they don't pick things up straight away. You can flog and flog and flog things, and it gets frustrating for everybody. And what I found was we left it for 3 weeks and we came back to it, and the penny dropped so quickly. And
mm,
that little gap was all they needed. I think we worry, feel like we're failing. Don't believe in yourself, do believe in yourself and your natural relationship and understanding of your children. Um, you'll usually be right. Another thing is don't be pressured by peer pressure, really. Within the homeschool community, there's always the latest amazing product on the market that a number of people are going for, think it's wonderful, their kids are doing great with it, or people are just trying things that they've always, it's been around for donkey's years, but that's working excellently for them, and that you really should try it, and it's so much easier. But I wasted a whole year on a curriculum that we bought because a friend had sold it to me, basically. But the approach was wrong. The kids hated it, but I bought all these books and I couldn't waste them. Um,
mm,
and we just tried to adapt it and that took an awful lot more work to sort of streamline it to them than if I just stuck with what I was doing before. So
mm,
believe in yourself and your gut instinct, basically.
mm.
I think
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
to
Yeah,
add
sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
to add to that, I mean, to the mums out there, don't forget that your first role is to be mum.
Yeah.
And sometimes your child just needs you to be mum. And I think don't ever
Mm,
forget that. You're not called to be an expert teacher. So it's okay to drop the ball sometimes. And don't beat yourself up. And exactly what Lorraine says, believe in yourself. So the more you believe in yourself, that's the energy your children or your homeschooling environment is going to feed off. And that's really, really important. This journey is not just about your child, it's about you. It's about the family. You're in this together. There has to be a great sense of partnership. And the more you believe in this, the more the children come on board because they feed, as I said, they feed off the energy and the environment. Um, Also, be flexible. You're going to chop and change as you go along, and it's okay. This is what it's about. It's a ongoing learning journey. Nothing is set in stone. And most importantly, what works for child A doesn't necessarily work for child B. So you got to do and you got to know what's right in your heart for your child. Follow your instincts. Don't follow the crowd. Do what's right for your child. And that's always been my ethos, doing what's right for my children and not being influenced by the outside noises. And that will give you a great sense of peace. And that's what homeschooling should bring. It should bring you more peace
Mm.
and not create you more anxiety. So, yeah, I'll leave you with that.
Thank you so much. Wow, this has been good nuggets that you landed with. Thank you so much, Lorraine and Sandia. This has been an exciting time together. Question here, Sheila. Uh, how do they know they are doing the exams or the maths according to the national curriculum standards? Yeah. Mm,
Um, you can see your children progressing.
mm,
You don't have to do the national curriculum in the UK, and we didn't. We used American material. Um, the fact they were learning the work and progressing and moving on to the next thing, we knew they were meeting standards. And then when they were 16, we did the SATs, which is the American system,
mm,
which earns them UCAS points for going to university if that's what they want to do, and is right for them. So that's mostly maths and English, and they all did well in that. They all did those. They also did a language and a science GCSE, and you can you get the past papers to check they're doing the work. You can get, we did get tutors for physics because I couldn't have taught that to GCSE, and yeah, the tutor was very happy with their work, and and then you can book or register to take the exam as an external candidate in, just apply to your local secondary school and see if they will accept you as your child as an external candidate to take the exams for GCSEs and A levels. So there are ways around it, and a lot of sixth form colleges, particularly, if you're doing something creative, if you go with a portfolio of work, they can see your gifting and your interest and your self motivation, and they would be very keen to take you on. Particularly as schools do get some sort of premium if they have a child that on paper isn't achieving academically. um, if they can then improve their grades by a significant amount, so between GCSE and A level, then they get some sort of funding or kudos. So a lot of schools, if they can see that your child is able from the work you take when you go for interview for sixth form, they will take you on, and because it looks good on them, even
mm,
though the child was very able. On
mm.
paper they do better afterwards.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So certainly there are ways um, to be able to assess. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Sandhya, any final thoughts or are we okay?
Uh, Nothing from my
No.
side,
All right.
Rex. I think
Okay.
we've covered
Thank you.
everything.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. I know we've run a little overrun the time, but this has been so worth it. And I want to again appreciate you both. Busy schedule. We're talking about balancing work life. I hope nobody's waiting. Where is mommy? Lorraine, I don't know if that is going to happen in your case. But yeah, but Thank you so much for the time. Sandia, I know it's pretty late in South Africa, but thank you for making the time. And I'm not going to say I will not be calling on you again, but thank you for the wealth of information you've shared. If there are any resources that you think would be helpful, I heard you talk about Oak Academy. If there are any other things, if you let me know so that I can put in the description for people, and also for our online audience, thank you so much for being with us and being part of tonight's program. If you've got any questions, you can send it to an email to frontdesk@mediaworksglobal.tv. And can we put that link there for the front desk so people can reach us if they need to? Yes, that's it there. So if you need to drop an email or concerning anything from today's subject, something was said, you wanted a bit more information, just send it to me and then I'll direct it to one of the two amazing moms. Thank you again, Lorraine and Sandhya. It's been a pleasure having you on Prime Focus. To our audience, thank you too. Have a wonderful night.